My name is Ray Thompson. I'm Director of Broadcast Media Solutions for Avid, and I'm sitting with Tim Graves. Tim, why don't you introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, hello, I'm one of the co-founders and currently working on partnerships and business development, and spent the first 4 years on the product side for Burst.
All right, so Avid back at NAB announced a partnership with Microsoft and Azure to deliver Azure certified and cloud native applications specifically for news, sports, and entertainment. And as part of that, at IBC, we announced the Media Central platform. So Media Central platform is one platform that sort of takes what you may already know as Media Central, which was a solution for doing federated searches across different interplay databases, and moves it forward as a platform with different modules and apps and services to drive workflows. So this chart's a bit of an eye chart, but it kind of highlights sort of the complexities that now exist when you start to look at how you're going to manage all these new incoming feeds for news, as well as your multi-platform distribution needs. So operationally, Media Central was really designed to help broadcasters not only aggregate content from multiple different sources and do distribution across multiple platforms, but to also aggregate that content and leverage things like Media Central and cognitive services to automate the indexing of content. So what you're left with is a highly available, easily accessible database that's searchable from pretty much any device, because we're building all these apps using HTML5, so that you can then access content, and journalists can actually produce an end-to-end newscast with a tablet, including graphics. So the solution really kind of starts with a stack, and like I said, the stack is really made up of the modules, which are broken up into different solutions that people can sort of use to expand based on their capabilities, right? So, for example, Media Central is the base platform, and then if you're doing news, you would introduce the newsroom management module, and if you wanted to add graphics, you would add the graphics module. Asset management, same thing, you would add the asset management module. And then if you want to expand the capabilities of each one of those modules, you can buy apps that would basically enable things like over-the-top distribution or distribution to social platforms. Same thing for ingesting content, because you have this significantly increasing amount of content coming into the building, including user-generated content, which is what we're going to talk about today. Media Central is really that aggregation point for you to take in all these different sources, automate the indexing of that content, and make it accessible across multiple devices. So what we did with Microsoft, like I said, was at IBC we showed the Azure certified versions of what is iNews and Interplay, and we also announced Media Central, right? So Media Central is sort of the next generation of Interplay and iNews, and it takes the best of both of those platforms and moves them forward onto this Media Central platform, which is made up of microservices. So microservices are that cloud native component that I was talking about. So that services layer is what's sitting underneath all of these apps and modules. And so operationally, broadcasters are challenged, especially when it comes to user-generated content. Certainly if you've been watching the news lately, whether it be weather or anything else, you'll notice that a big part of that news broadcast includes user-generated content. And so we partnered with Burst to enable broadcasters to easily not only curate and aggregate that content, but then bring it into the Media Central platform so that news organizations could then easily take that content and use the best of it in that news broadcast. And so with that, I'll sort of hand it over to Tim here to talk a little bit more about what those pieces are.
Okay, so from a overview perspective, Burst is just makes it very easy to get mobile content into our cloud, and then from our cloud into distribution workflows. So for us, I always try to explain the platform in 3 buckets. So it's about content acquisition and making it very simple for either reporters or freelancers to upload content through our app. We also can be embedded into existing news apps. So for example, with the Sinclair Broadcasting relationship, we're in all of their news apps. And then we have a mobile web workflow for crowdsourcing. What we found out very early on is that asking someone to download an app and sign up for something was a difficult task when you're trying to get them to contribute content towards a story, for example. So the content acquisition part is a really important aspect of it. And then when it gets to the cloud, we're providing tools and capabilities, management curation tools to simply and easily make decisions about how to use that content. So you can take the content and get it into distribute it into a digital workflow. It can go to social, and it can go directly into broadcast. So our unique integration with Avid in this instance enables us and our clients to frankly get video from a phone and into broadcast in a matter of minutes, or it can go directly into editing and be packaged and then push to broadcast. So very simple, easy way to get it from point A to point B. And then, in listening to some of the sessions today, a lot of folks are struggling with the ability to do that in a cost-effective way and to do it quickly and easily. So our integration with Avid and some of the other systems that we're integrated into make it easy. Your people don't have to learn another product. They basically can kind of plug into our cloud and make decisions about how to use content and improve the storytelling. This is just an example of some, the one before, but one of the interesting things, for us, the first problem is to get people to acquire content, and the second part is to make that content easy to manage. So this past weekend was a great example. We had the snow in Texas and Alabama, Tennessee, and North Carolina. I think from December 7th to December 8th, we had over 30,000 uploads around that weather event. So what we see typically is user-generated content around weather, around news stories, around general events, and then sports. So depending on kind of what's going on, it needs to be relevant and contextual to folks that are on the other side of that. But one of the really cool things that we saw this past weekend, it typically starts off with a call to action on air. So, or it can be a link on social media, or it can be on the digital property, but we just want to make it very simple for people to interact, right? So there's no complication there. One of the stations this weekend, when they got in the morning, there was 1,000 media items already uploaded. They hadn't even done a call to action. So what we're starting to see, after about a year of this, is organically people are starting to know where to go and how to contribute content to enhance the storytelling. This is just a quick look at the Avid integration, but at the end of the day, we care a lot. There's been a lot of discussion about machine learning and AI and how do you help manage and curate content. So we care a lot about that as well. So it was important for us in our initial Avid integration was to be able to get the content and the metadata into that workflow for a lot of obvious reasons. But we also provide we care a lot about the data side of this, and not just the simple things about time, date, location, but also tagging. We look at color and edges. We look at scene detection. We're looking at object detection now, and we take a cut at creating what we call an auto montage. So it's just taking that machine learning algorithm and trying to take the best of a bubble, which is our content container, and present it to the folks that are either on the digital side or on the TV side, and then enable them to either edit it further or at least help them with the curation problem initially, and then be able to get the media to air quickly.
So Tim, when you think about these types of things and the effect it has on viewer engagement, you can talk a little bit more about how, based on what you guys have seen and the apps that you've rolled out, how that's affected sort of the viewer engagement with news.
Yeah, I think the nice thing is that it starts to present an integrated package, if you will. There's always been this kind of silo, I'd say, between digital and broadcast, and we can kind of provide that bridge by giving viewers or fans and followers, depending on where they're coming from, a way to interact and engage with the station. So it makes it very, it's a unique and interesting proposition for folks. And what we're seeing is that they are engaging, particularly at the local level. As long as what we're asking them for is, contextual, it makes sense to them, it's relevant to the story they're contributing to.
And then certainly one of the big topics has been the monetization of content, especially content on multiple different platforms. Can you talk about sort of the monetization possibilities you guys have started to see on the contribution side?
Yep, absolutely. So, for us, initially we were software as a service, which is the majority of how our platform is structured. Although there's, some instances now where we're talking about software as a service plus ad revenue sharing. So some, approaching it from that point of view. But what we're seeing, for us, the first problem is to get everything set up, which takes about an hour, by the way. Integration into Avid takes about 15 minutes. There's no heavy lifting here because we've already done that. We can plug in pretty easily into those systems and get up and running quickly. And then, once that happens, we have the ability to start to accumulate content. And once that happens, we have the opportunity to build packages around that. So, you could imagine a brand or someone being very interested in the idea, and they are, where I can kind of own 100% share of voice across a digital property, some in-news segments, and traditional broadcast elements as part of that. So that revenue, plugging that revenue into the content is the most recent part of this that we're working on in terms of with our partners, and we've seen some really good early success there.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Sports events or even like a weather event where, like a hardware store, a Home Depot or somebody like that could actually brand, your coverage of that from a user perspective, which is pretty cool.
Yep.
You also talked about the curation that you guys are doing. Can you talk about how that content that you're curating ends up in a file that then also gets ingested into Media Central?
Yeah, so so from our cloud, someone at a station, whether it's the digital side or the TV side or both, will view the media, and right from there just make a decision, yes or no, approve or reject, and that content can flow in two ways. So in typical scenario would be it goes into a content management system where it can be part of a story that can be published directly to digital, and then secondarily, on the broadcast side, it can be checked into Avid. So what happens in our integration in the media director is we check the media and the metadata into which is basically a watch service. And that watch service is being maintained and watched by media director. It picks up the media and the metadata and then checks it directly into Interplay. So now once it's into the Avid system, our partners can either go right to air through the air speeds, or it can go into an editing package and then get pushed to air after that.
So this is giving news organizations a very simple way to take what's already being curated and aggregated, import that directly into either Interplay or Media Central, and now you have this searchable database of user-generated content that you can then leverage across your different platforms or in the actual broadcast itself to help tell the story. So that's a big part of sort of what we've teamed up to do, and we're already seeing multiple customers, some pretty big ones actually, that are implementing this, enterprise-wide.